His eyes snapped open to the scent of ozone and decay, a metallic taste coating his tongue. The air in the room felt thick and damp, clinging to his skin like cold spiderwebs. From somewhere in the darkness came a faint, wet scratching sound, like fingernails dragging across stone. He tried to move, but his limbs felt weighted down, as if submerged in thick, cold mud. A whisper brushed against his ear, breath smelling of turned earth and forgotten things. The calendar on the wall showed a date 20 years in the future, each day crossed off in what looked like dried blood. In the mirror across the room stood a stranger with his eyes, a gaunt, aged version of himself, mouth moving in silent warning. And then he understood. He hadn't slept through the night. Something had stolen every moment in between. The world was irrevocably transformed. This is no children's story. This is Kalachi. For more than 10 years, its inhabitants didn't merely doze off. A thick, metallic scent of ozone and decay hangs in the damp, heavy air. The only sound is the faint, irregular drip of water from a broken gutter. A profound, unnerving quiet has settled over the place. A stillness that feels less like peace and more like a held breath. Here, sleep was not a refuge, but a curse that stole over a decade from an entire community. They vanished from their own lives. A child slumped lifelessly at a school desk, head resting on a half-finished roll. In a sun-drenched field, a man lay prone, one hand outstretched, as if reaching for something just out of frame. The only sound left was the slow, heavy thud of a fading heartbeat, echoing in the sudden, profound stillness. A silent, empty schoolyard. An entire village, stolen by sleep. And the truth is more terrifying than any dream. The backstory. Children kicked a soccer ball through the dusty streets, their laughter carrying across sun-baked earth. Nearby, women haggled at a market stall, their chatter mingling with the scent of dried spices and earth. To American geologists John and Sarah Miller, visiting in the late 1990s, Kalachi appeared as just another sleepy post-Soviet mining town. It seemed hardworking and close-knit, a community unaware of the creeping dread that would soon engulf its sun-drenched streets. In a town where neighbors shared stories over fences and recognized each other's faces, Mike Kovacs was known to all. A former miner, his hands were calloused from the deep, dark earth, and his heart was devoted to his boy. Life was simple, marked by hard work and predictable rhythms. But beneath that surface of familiar routine, something else was waiting. Then, in 2013, the predictable ended. Narrator. It started with the children. In Mrs. Henderson's third-grade class, a sudden, metallic scent of ozone cut through the chalk dust. Little hands went still. The rhythmic scratch of pencils ceased, leaving a void more profound than quiet. In Petrov's third-grade classroom, little Anya simply laid her head down on her desk. The teacher thought it was defiance, a quiet protest against the lesson. Then Dmitri slipped silently from his chair, a soft thud on the floorboards. Then another child followed, the classroom air thickening with a faint, metallic scent. Within minutes, 8 children lay unconscious, unreachable in their silent slumber. Authorities dismissed it as a mass fainting, a strange, isolated tragedy that would soon fade from memory. But this was no one-off event. The air in that clinic carried the faint metallic scent of ozone, a whisper of something unnatural that clung to everything it touched. A week later, Mike Kovacs was trudging home from the shop when a wave of dizziness struck him. A crushing pressure built behind his eyes, thick and suffocating, like a vice tightening inside his skull. The world dissolved into a smear of light and shadow, the last sensation a metallic taste at the back of his throat. He blinked awake to the sterile smell of antiseptic in a hospital bed. 3 days of his life simply gone. He was discovered crumpled by the roadside, lost in a slumber so profound it was unbreakable. The affliction began to metastasize. It seeped through the community like a creeping fog. An elder would drift off mid-sentence, then not stir again for 2 full days, the air in the room growing thick and stagnant. A farmer was found slumped over his tractor, but these weren't simple naps. Victims described a sudden, overwhelming urge to sleep, their heads filling with what they called cotton wool, before everything went black. They'd awaken hours, sometimes days later, disoriented and nauseous, with no memory of the lost time. The air in those barns carried the scent of ozone and damp earth, a heavy silence broken only by the distant drip of water. Elena's voice was a hollow whisper as she recounted that night through her translator. She had tucked her 8-year-old son into bed, kissed his forehead, and watched his chest rise and fall in peaceful rhythm. When she woke, the air in the room felt thick and stale, like the smell of old paper left in a forgotten attic. Her son was gone, and in his place stood a young man she did not recognize, as if weeks had vanished in a single breath. I missed his birthday. I missed his life. I was a ghost in my own home. Kalachi earned a new name: the Village of the Damned, the Sleeping Village. Over 140 people, a quarter of the population, were affected. Scientists descended upon the quiet streets, their arrival a stark contrast to the stillness. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and damp earth, a tangible unease that clung to everything. Theories flew like dust in the wind, whispers of the unknown that settled into a cold, sticky dread. Graphics swirled with theories, each dissolving into nothingness. Mass hysteria? The words evaporate, leaving only a faint, metallic scent. A virus? The idea disintegrates, its echo a dry, papery rustle. Each dismissed possibility deepens the void, leaving the true horror nameless and waiting. Mass hysteria? The brain scans told a different story. Abnormal neural activity flickering like faulty circuitry. Could carbon monoxide be seeping from abandoned mine shafts? The ground tremored faintly, then held steady. The air carried the metallic scent of old earth and something sharper. Ozone, like after lightning strikes. A virus? Or something else entirely? Something that didn't just infect bodies but rewired minds from the inside out. No fever, no contagion pattern. The abandoned uranium mines became the prime suspect. Could radioactive gases be seeping upward, tainting the very air? Investigators in hazmat suits descended into basements, their equipment humming as they took air samples from the oppressive darkness. The results were chilling. Elevated levels of carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons. Invisible, odorless killers lurking in the homes. Yet the question remained. Was this chemical cocktail the true source, or merely a symptom of something far more sinister rising from the deep? The government's solution was relocation, moving families to new homes while officially closing the case. They presented it as simple cause and effect. A physical problem required a physical remedy, but the air in those abandoned houses still carried the faint, metallic scent of ozone. And at night, if you listen close, you could still hear the faint, wet scratching from within the walls. But for the people of Kalachi, the psychological terror had roots no official decree could ever extract. The families were relocated. On one screen, a sterile promise of a fresh start. On the other, Mike Kovacs sits motionless in his new home, his vacant stare fixed on a blank wall, the air thick with the scent of fresh paint and something else. A faint, metallic tang. The strange sleep episodes mostly stopped. Case solved, right? The gas was the villain. But if that's true, why did the deepest damage only reveal itself after they were safe? The air in their new home held the sterile scent of fresh paint, but beneath it lingered a faint, metallic tang. Safety became the quiet before the true storm, a fragile peace shattered not by an external threat, but by the rot that had taken root within. The split screen vanished, focusing on Mike Kovacs, face etched with years that shouldn't have been there. He now lived in a sterile, clean apartment where the air held no scent, but his mind remained cluttered with memories that clung like damp cloth. The silence here was absolute, yet inside him, whispers scratched at the walls of his thoughts. Mike's mind was fractured, his memories dissolving into violent, unpredictable voids. A condition doctors grimly labeled organic brain syndrome. The toxic gases had etched permanent physical scars into his neural pathways, leaving his will paralyzed. His teenage son, Leo, now guides his father's trembling hands into a coat, his young face etched with a weary, heartbreaking sadness. Mike's very personality had been eroded, forcing Leo into the role of parent, a burden no child should bear. The man who loved jokes, who taught Leo to fish, was gone. In his father's body sat a confused, lethargic stranger. This was the true Rip Van Winkle curse. You don't just lose time, you lose yourself. The village remained sleepless for 2 decades. But for men like Mike, some part of them never truly stirred. The candle from the beginning returns, its flame now sputtering violently in the dead air. A sharp, chemical scent cuts through the room, and the cold seems to seep from the very walls. So, was it the gas? The official reports say yes, but villagers whisper other things. They speak of the psychological toll of living under a curse, the collective trauma of waiting for sleep to take you. They talk about a sickness of place, a sickness of the soul, a creeping dread that seeps into the soil and stains the very air they breathe. The wind whistles through Kalachi's broken windows, carrying the scent of rust and rot. A child's toy lies half buried in the overgrown yard, its metal joints seized by corrosion. The air feels thick with abandonment, a damp chill clinging to every surface. This ghost town stands empty, haunted not by spirits but by the heavy silence of lost years. On paper, the mystery is solved, but in the eyes of Mike, Elena, and the other survivors, something remains, a question more chilling than any scientific explanation. The candle snuffs out, plunging the screen into darkness. A metallic scent hangs in the air, cold and heavy. Narrator. Did they breathe a toxic gas, or did they inhale the very essence of time itself and suffocate on it? 3 seconds of absolute stillness passed. Then, from the void, a faint, ragged breathing emerged, the deep, labored rhythm of sleep. The sound hung in the air, thick with the scent of stale ozone and damp linen. It faded to nothing, leaving only the cold, sticky dread of an unwelcome presence.